Hi, I'm Sergeant Speakman, Earth Walker Primitive. Today I wanted to go over with you a little bit of a knife, blade, and axe safety and preferred use video here. I'll go over a couple safety tips and also some safe methods and ways to use your knives and your blades and your axes to get your job done and also be safe and be more productive. We're going to go over, I got with me today, I got my utility knife that I always use and carry with me. I also got with me my K-bar field knife. It's my heavy-duty knife. Also got a machete, and I also got my camp axe. So we're going to go over all four of those items, different techniques and different safety methods to follow, and make sure that you're not going to hurt yourself, injure yourself, or anybody else while you're out here in the woods, out here doing bushcraft or in a survival experience. So stick with us, and we'll get rolling. Okay, the first thing I want to go over is a couple holes. As you see here, I have my utility knife I use. It's just a folding spring-assisted knife that I carry with me. It's part of my EDC. I never go out without it. First off, I want to say that I got my gloves on. If you do have gloves with you, always a good thing to carry, keep on you. If you're cutting and using blades or knives, axes, it's a good thing to have on you, just an extra safety precaution. First thing I want to go over a few holds. You'll see a lot of people hold knives a lot differently. The way I recommend you hold it is with a complete grip, just like a fist. You see a lot of people hold their knives and they'll put their thumb up one here or in any other different variants, but to me, I notice that you get the best pressure, the best power if you're holding it in a full grip. That way you're not resting your thumb here and it's just a power on your thumb. Your thumb doesn't have as much power as your full arm. If you're holding it in a full grip, you're getting that full power of your arm as you're slicing forward or cutting into something. So that's my preferred grip. Now, one thing I want to mention, obviously just a safety thing. Obviously you never want to cut up into you. Alright? Anybody been to Boy Scouts or anything like that? Probably heard this 1,000 times. But if you're like me, forget everything you learned at Boy Scouts. But cutting into yourself obviously is a danger. You got your hands in the way, you've got your body into the way. At no time do you want to be cutting down on your leg either, because if you slip, if you're cutting in the dry wood and it cuts through that dry wood, or if you slip and you come down, you run the possibility of cutting your knife. So you always want to be cutting away from you, pushing away from your body as much as possible. Another good technique is to move whatever you're cutting rather than the knife. When you have the knife moving, that is a risk at all times, because that blade hits anything. If it's sharp, it's going to cut. Best thing to do is, as much as possible, move the object you're cutting rather than a knife. A good way to cut, if you're shaving something, like I'm just going to shave the bark off this piece of wood. If you're shaving something, put that knife hand down on your knee, rest it on your knee, solid, lock your arm out, keep it steady. That knife is not going to move. Now all I got to do is draw my wood along the knife. And I'm cutting just as well as I would if I was cutting by moving my hand, but I'm being more safe. It's a lot more safer of a technique, plus you can put all that pressure and draw back on that knife to get the job done. So whenever you can, keep that knife stationary and keep it from moving. It just limits how much, limits the risk of you cutting yourself or slipping. If I'm sitting here slicing like this, I could slip and cut my leg, cut into my leg, and definitely if I'm coming up this way, I can cut into my arm or even into my body. I see a lot of people working with their knives like this. This is just a risk also. You want to keep it down. Whoops. You also see another technique you can use if you are trying to shave, shave something, is put the stick or whatever up into your body. Place the stick onto the ground. That way you have that stick steady and you can come in and shave. And make sure you're keeping your hand up above your blade. I see a lot of times people trying to shave through something like this, or even cut through something. You slip, that's a straight cut right to your wrist right there, and that's definitely something you don't want out in a survival situation when you have no evacuation or medical supplies or personnel out there. Bleed out, that's the most dangerous thing in a survival situation, is bleeding out. Your body can only take, depending on what arteries cut, can only take minutes, seconds sometimes to completely bleed out. So that's why it's important to exercise proper knife safety. So just to recap what I just went over with the knife here, like I said, if you're going to shave away from the body, keep your body behind the blade. At no time do you want any body parts in front of this blade. Whenever possible, keep that blade still and hold it and move the piece that you're shaving along with it. That way you're limiting how much this blade's moving and the risk that you're going to cut yourself. Alright, next thing I want to go over is what if you have to chop a piece of wood and all you have is your small utility knife. There's definitely ways you can do it. I'm going to show you a technique. This technique I like to use. I believe it's the more safest technique. Plus, it also helps you get a clean cut. And this technique you can also use if you're using primitive tools, as in an axe rock or a cutting rock, or even a piece of bone. I've cut sticks with bone knives like this before. It's a way to get a clean cut rather than trying to hack away at it. I've seen people with their little knives trying to hack at a piece of wood. With this little knife, as sharp as they are sometimes, that's not a good, safe thing to do. You can slip. Little knives like this are hard to get a good grip on whenever you're whacking away at something. So I got this little piece of wood here I want to cut in half. One way I want to do that, say I want to cut along this line right here. I know where I want to cut for whatever craft or tool I'm making. That's where I need to make my cut. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back behind that and notch into the wood. As you can see, I'm keeping my blade still, keeping my hands behind it. I'm using my thumb as a little bit of pressure on the back of the blade to help move that blade, and all I'm doing is pushing and twisting at an angle, chipping away, almost as if you would as the way you would cut with an axe. Just pushing and twisting into that wood and bringing chips of it out. Then you want to work away to the other side and do the same thing. You can see I chipped into this wood at an angle. Now I want to come back at the other side at an angle, basically making a point, a thin, weak point in this branch. Of course, this method takes a little time, but in a situation where you don't have proper tools and you got to improvise, things always take time. But the key here is to make a precise, clean cut rather than smashing into a wood or trying to break it on a tree where it might break, where you don't want it to break, or splinter. The key is to get the nice, clean cut right at the spot where you want it. And to do it safely and not hurt yourself. Alright, now you can either continue on cutting through, or as you can see, I put a weak spot in this wood, so applying a little bit of leverage is going to make that stick break right in that spot. Now this will work even if you're doing a thicker piece. I've cut logs about that thick before using the same method. You have to cut a little bit deeper, obviously, to get a weak spot, but that's all you're doing is chipping away at those sides to make yourself get a clean cut. And this is a safe, clean cut, clean way to cut a piece of wood without risking injury to yourself or even splintering up and breaking this piece of wood. If you just put it between two trees, if you have no tools at all, that's the way you would do it. But if you have the tools and you don't want to be splintering up a bunch of logs, you can go ahead and use this method and it'll cut it cleanly.